Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Goblins and Growlers Podcast. I'm Josh Maltby at Black Cloak DM in the places I can be found.
And I'm BLD in the place to be at Way of Brandalore on social media. This is Brandon. This is your boy, Brandon Dingus.
What's up? It's your boy, Brandon Dingus.
Smash that like button.
Coming to you live from the RVA.
Hit that notification bell and all that jazz.
We out here in the 804.
Scott should cut all of this out.
No, he should not. He should leave all of that in.
Yeah, we're recording this episode a little bit close to the wire because we have to get it done in time for Scott to edit it before he comes to Josh's house for several days. Because we don't want him working while he's on vacation.
It'd be a little messed up for us to be like, all right, now that you're here, please edit the podcast.
Yeah. We've prepared a workspace for you. We will shut and lock the door, and you can emerge when it's ready.
Only once victorious.
So today we're talking about a little bit of a blast from the past from the late 80s, early 90s, and it's sort of circuitous how we came onto this topic. I can't even remember how we got talking about it, but all I remember is you saying that it was a big portion of your youth, and that surprised me.
So the way we got here was that you were talking about a different D&D tile game that someone had created, and as you're showing me what this game is, I'm like, oh, this reminds me of Castle of the Winds, which I played a lot of when I was a kid. And you were like, what's Castle of the Winds? And I said, oh, Brandon, let me bring you into the fold, my good sir. At which point you found a 13-minute speed run, which is incredible because it's an almost entirely random number generated game.
Yeah, I mean, it was really cool. It was from Brosentia, who's one of the more top-tier speedrunners out there, alongside his sister, Essentia, and their friend Poexel, who do a lot of JRPG speedruns. And I just found it very randomly. But as Josh said, today we're talking about Castle of the Winds, probably the most preeminent Windows 3.1 RPG game that ever was, and I'm really kind of shocked that you are familiar with it, because you are perhaps 11 years younger than me, and this came out. The first game came out in, what was it, 86?
No,
89.
It would have been like 89.
It was 89. So I was like 8 at that point, and in between 89 and 93, I got into computers in 91, 92, and over the next several years beyond 93, I played tons of DOS games. I played tons of Windows games and things like that, and I'm just surprised that I never ran across Castle of the Winds at all. And it's probably because I didn't have internet until much later, so it would have been difficult to find it. And I didn't read the computer magazines where you could, back in the day, you'd fill out the little card and enclose a check and send it to the game company. And then they would send you some, either 5 1/4 or 3 1/2 floppies in the mail, and you could install the game. I wasn't on bulletin boards or anything like that, so I didn't have any way to get it. So it's just so strange to me that you know this game, and it was really just sort of a number on me, because I had seen it before, but had just forgotten about it. Over the last few years, I've dipped in and out of abandonware.com, and it's a shareware game, so it's on there because they'll put anything that they can put for free on the abandonware sites or archive.org or anything like that. But I just never really paid it much mind. Please tell me how you got into this game.
So I need you to understand something about my family dynamic growing up. We were simultaneously incredibly poor and also very, very dorky. For folks in the audience who are a little less familiar with my history, my entire family was homeschooled. My parents went to school publicly as they were growing up, but then they decided very early in my older two brothers' lives that public schooling was not going to work out super well. The place where we were living at the time, the school district wasn't great, and there was a lot of like, oh yeah, kids here occasionally get stabbed, but it's okay, it's not a big deal. We haven't had anyone die.
Mm-hmm.
So they immediately were like, no, I don't think we're going to do that. I think we're going to do a homeschooling thing. We're going to figure that out. So I spent the first 17 years of my life having not set foot in a school environment. And we spent a lot of time learning on our own. Once the advent of the internet was broad enough, we were on that near constantly. But even then, it was like dial up. Hell yeah, dial up.
Mm-hmm.
This, I think we managed to get our hands on not because we were really hip and with it in 1992 when the second game came out, but because we were doing things like pulling the CDs out of old magazines and going, hey, it looks like there's games on this.
Oh, I was such a fiend for. I would always buy like PC Gamer magazine, like starting in like the mid '90s, probably like 94, 95, something like that, and just play the demos. I would just always play the demos because I never had any money to buy the games, so I would just play the demos, and I always felt like I'd hit the jackpot when there was some freeware or shareware on there, like the first levels of Duke Nukem 3D or something like that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. We got into the Warcraft series because their demos were so gripping at the
Mm-hmm.
time. Like the Warcraft 1 and 2 demos were clutch. Up to and including where in Warcraft 2 you could click on the units to annoy them and get
Mm-hmm.
different voice lines. And one of the voice lines they would do is, to hear more of these silly lines, buy the full game.
I always remember the one. It was like, join the army, they said. See the world, they said. I'd rather be sailing.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
I played a lot of that in computer lab in high school.
Oh, hell yeah. So that gives you kind of a general idea of who we were as people growing up. Castle of the Winds, by the time we would have been seeking out that sort of software, was freeware for the original game, and the sequel was really inexpensive, if I recall correctly. I think it was like $10.
Mm-hmm.
So we got the freeware, of course, and we played the heck out of that. And then we found out much later, oh, there was a sequel? Oh my God, we've got to find and play the sequel.
All right, so tell me a little bit about Castle of the Winds because I've played around with it a little bit. You and I talked about this a couple months ago when I talked about the Christopher Nolan-esque levels of emulation I was going through to try to play some games on my Mac. So on my Mac, I installed DOSBox for the first time in a long time, and then through DOSBox, I installed a copy of Windows 3.1. And then once I was in Windows 3.1, I installed a copy of Microsoft Golf because I just had a weird sort of nostalgic memory of playing Microsoft Golf back in the day with my dad. And it's actually a horrible game once I got back into it. The interface is terrible. Before we started recording, Josh was like leafing through a PDF of a magazine, and it had an ad for like Lynx 386 or something, which was a contemporaneous golf game that came out, which looks about 1 billion times better than MS Golf. But I remarked that the interface for like computer golf games has not changed at all in 40 years. It's the same little thing. You click and it does the spin, and then it comes back and you got to click it again at the right spot. But it's not fun. And I promise this connects back to Castle of the Winds because it reminded me of sort of the experimental nature of native computer gaming inside Windows 3.1, because just the way the Windows worked with the GUI, you would have, it's not like now where everything can sort of exist in one window. It was sort of a shell of a window, and then there were multiple windows, each with their little minus sign and maximize and minimize and everything. And it was just super clunky. And I just think it's so funny gaming in Win31 because there were so many DOS games out back then. And if you wanted to play a serious game, like a well done, quote unquote game, you would play it through DOS because that's where all the quality titles were. But then they start making these native games, and we'll talk about like Castle of the Winds and shareware and freeware and stuff for that. And they start doing it in Windows 3.1, and you immediately see the limitations, and you see the pedigree of Windows 3.1 as sort of an outgrowth of like Windows 2 or whatever, and how it was a business application. It was 100% a business facilitation app. Because, for example, like, we'll talk about this in a little bit, but with the art with Castle of the Winds, right? It's all icon based. Like all the art assets in that game are Windows 3.1 size icons, and it uses the Windows 16-bit color palette or whatever. The 16 color palette, not 16-bit color palette.
But the 16 color palette.
But it's just, and this takes nothing away from the game at all, but everything just looks clunky. Like, it doesn't matter what native 3.1, 3.11 game you're talking about, it just looks clunky. And that's a limitation of the platform and is no reflection on the quality of the game, I don't think. Because even my criticisms for MS Golf, it's like, it's a decent golf game for 1993. It just, the interface is clumsy. And I'm spoiled now. And I always go back to my story of, like, I don't really care for the Beatles because I didn't listen to the Beatles till I was older, till after I listened to every band that had been influenced by the Beatles since they came out. So consequently, it's really hard for me to enjoy the Beatles. And it's sort of the same now, going back to try to play a game like this with the interface. Because, like, while the game may be great, like, because Beatles music is great, it's just really difficult to overcome some of the, I guess, cultural and historical biases that I've had built up for this kind of thing. And this is from somebody who like played these kind of games when they came out. I've just gotten so unused to it, and things have gotten so much better from an interface standpoint. And that's just, talking about a really simple sports game. Like, golf is about the simplest game to design an interface for a computer game, I think. Because you don't have to worry about people running all over the screen or anything like that. But then you get into something like Castle of the Winds that's an RPG, and you have to support all the other things that an RPG can do.
So here's part of the beauty of Castle of the Winds as a game running on something like Windows 3.1. Everything is turn-based. So the monsters in the game don't move unless you move. They don't attack unless you are moving or attacking.
They're like ludicrous. When I move, you move.
So you can sit and stare at a room you just walked into where you can see 5 guys that are about to make your life a living hell.
Mm-hmm.
And you can be like, how do I want to handle this exactly? And you can plan out every step that you are going to take, every action you are going to perform before doing anything. And then as you like cast a spell into the room, then they move once. You cast a spell on yourself, maybe they move again. You start to move, they continue to move. Like, it's the beauty of it is it's so much simpler because it's all based on your activity.
Mm-hmm.
Enables their activity,
and that's
their programming is in response to what you do.
And that's really just one of the most common roguelike mechanics that's out there. And my first exposure to that was actually a really great JRPG called Lufia 2. It was the first game in the Lufia series that I played, and it has a similar function in its dungeons for monsters like that. On the overworld, you get random encounters, but in the dungeons, it's the same thing where you can see them and you can try to maneuver around them and things like that. But it's just really a hallmark of the roguelike genre, and that's really what Castle of the Winds is.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's also a roguelike in the sense that if you die, the dungeon resets and regenerates anew. Your gear is gone, so you have to go and buy new gear. And what you know about the dungeon previously all you've learned is like, oh yeah, there's secret doors that I can find. There's these kinds of monsters in the first couple of floors, and there's these kinds of monsters on the next couple of floors. Like, that's all the information you have. It really is very roguelike in its essence.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that's amazing to me about this game, and this is something I didn't know until literally today preparing for the podcast, is that this is something that the designer, Richard Sada, put together because he wanted to stop working on, what was it? DOS Word.
Yeah.
He was at Microsoft and really sick of working on DOS Word, so he decided to learn Windows 3.1, and the way he did that was by programming Castle of the Winds. And
That's
then
fantastic.
he put it out as like shareware so that people could play it if they were so interested, because he was like, here's a fun little thing that I did. And he got, according to his own reporting, some 13,500 registrations.
Which for the late 80s, for the population of people like who were doing recreational computing and who would be willing to make the effort to play the game or anything like that, that's a pretty significant chunk.
Well, not just to play the game. Those are the people who then went onto the shareware site and said, I bought or I picked up this game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's that additional step. Like, I barely registered the appliances that I buy for the warranty that comes with them.
I don't think I have registered a shareware game in my entire life.
I don't know that I have either. And so that suggests that 13,500, let's assume that the rules of people who complain about things versus people who post positive reviews of things applies also to people who will post about registering the shareware of a thing. If it's a 1 in 7, then it's very likely, and I think this is realistic, that he did almost 100,000 registrations. So that to me is absolutely incredible. And I think if people go out and they boot up DOSBox and they load in Windows 3.1,
there are other ways to play this.
Are there other ways to play this?
I know
other authentic ways to play this.
Authentic is another story. Like, playing it native. I mean, I say that I'm playing it emulated. I'm not playing it on the original hardware.
No.
So there was supposed to be an online, like a website where you could play it online, and that was a couple of years ago. And I don't know if it was ever completed because I think it was sort of in progress. But I also think archive.org, because a lot of the freeware and shareware games they have up there, you can play them through a browser as well. So there are really easy ways to play it.
Yeah, there's definitely more options.
Mm-hmm.
What I was going to say though is I think if people go and check this out, and we're going to put it up on video for the folks who are watching along at YouTube to see kind of what it is like.
Yeah.
If you go and check it out, it's such a nifty little game, like incredibly, incredibly simple. And honestly, if I'd really thought about it as an adult, as someone who works with computers on the day-to-day, I could have looked at this and been like, this is someone's programming project.
Yeah. Yeah. And just looking at it, like I was saying, like it's very obvious that somebody was like, you know what, this business application, I'm going to shoehorn some kind of game into it because it's all numbers.
It does look a bit like somebody turned macros in an Excel spreadsheet into a video game.
Yeah. Yeah,
that is
really
kind
does.
of the general atmosphere of it.
Yeah, you fire it up and it has a black screen, blue Gothic type Castle of the Winds, and then it's part 1. You can start, you can load, or you can get an overview. I've still never clicked on overview. I've fooled around with this a little bit, and because after you hit start game, it immediately takes you to character creation, and you can see that my character name pre-populated is Ass Masterson, and that's because I was fooling around with it last week before I got kind of busy. And for anybody who doesn't know, Ask Masterson is, to me, a core component of my high school identity, because it's the name I used when I made prank calls in high school and would say my name was Ask Masterson because I was quick-witted and intelligent. So that's why that's there. But you got strength, intelligence, con, and dex sliders, and there are no numbers to it or anything. It's just, you've got essentially a point buy system, but there are no points. It's just a shader bar, and you draw from one shader bar to spread it out to the others.
A 4-quadrant shader bar at that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it gives you a general idea of where you're at in a sum of 25% at a time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And you can select male or female, and it's got just this little icon of a dude with no shirt and a sword. And it's just a .ico file for Windows 3.1. You could literally throw... Because back in the day, kids, you could get these massive software packages of nothing but Windows icons that you would go to Babbage's or something and pay like $20 for. And it was like 3,000 icons. And I had one of those. But you can just navigate to the path to any particular icon file and replace your character avatar with it. So it could be anything. I could use the Chips Challenge or the Jezball icon for this. And, I mentioned Chips Challenge, and that's sort of another sort of classic example of the graphic style of Windows 3.1 games, because that was on Windows Entertainment Pack 2, I think, when that came out. And my uncle had that, so I would play Chips Challenge on his laptop when I was a kid. Come to find out, in my 40s, that Chips Challenge actually came out for like Atari Lynx in the mid 80s or something like that. I've played it on emulation recently, and it's really smooth. The graphics are different; they're less sharp, obviously, than what you get on Windows 3.1. But then I was like, oh hey, this is fun playing this emulated on the Lynx. So I'm going to go back and play it on Windows 3.1. And it was a whole different experience because the graphics were better, but the motion was terrible because you're essentially just sliding. There's no smooth movement or anything. You got to think of it as a grid, and you're just moving from block to block to block. And it's just chunk, chunk, chunk. There's no smooth motion of characters or anything like that. And you find that in Castle of the Winds too. And I love it's got 4 levels of difficulty. It's marked off like a hiking trail, essentially. It's even got the black diamond for difficult, but you got easy, intermediate, difficult, and experts only, which is an alert sign, basically. So I'm going to click on easy. And
real quick, I don't know if it'll let you back up from this. I was going to say if you could pull the female figure, because my distinct recollection is that the female character is actually wearing significantly more clothes than the male character. The male character is exclusively wearing, this is made very clear by the fact that the legs are visible just barely at the bottom of the screen, is basically just wearing a Conan the Barbarian style, like, loincloth around
his
pelvis. Yeah, very much He-Man energy. The female character is wearing a, admittedly a halter top, but a fully sleeved top with a similar He-Man-esque bottom to go with it.
All right, I'm gonna hit OK and just jump into the game. And you can choose one spell to start with, and I'm gonna pick Magic Arrow.
Yeah, I strongly recommend either Magic Arrow or Heal Minor Wounds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it, for anybody just listening to the audio version of the podcast, it's exactly like you would expect. It's just this little tile-based map that you're going around. It's at 100% a bird's eye view. There's no isometric perspective or anything here. You're just wandering around. There's a path. There's several houses. They all look like they have real estate signs in front of them. And you can go.
If you stand on those, they tell you what the shop is before you enter it.
Oh. I just have to hit.
There's a button you have to press to read signs. Or you click on them. You might actually click on them.
This is riveting audio. Nothing here to open or
Ah,
close.
I don't remember how to do it anymore. But you can read the signs to see
Hmm.
what shops they are before you enter them.
Yeah, and it's again, this being the 80s, the late 80s, early 90s, interface interfaces hadn't really been nailed down either because really just with Windows 3.1 and DOS applications, you had started to see really the rise of mouse-based user interface. And even with games for a while, the jump from being text input to graphical input was weird because right around this same time, King's Quest IV came out, and that was transitional because King's Quest III was 100% a text-based input. King's Quest V was 100% a mouse-based input, but King's Quest IV was hybridized because you had a mouse and you could do most of your actions that way, but then you also could hit a button and that would pull up a text prompt that would allow you to input text commands. And Castle of the Wind sort of falls into sort of the same territory because I've got my map here. You've got your stats, HP, mana, speed, time, which actually doesn't matter except for when merchants refresh their inventory. Like there are no triggered events at certain times. But you also have a bunch of key commands. Like if there's something on the ground, you can hit G and that'll search. But I don't know what any of those are aside from that one. So,
I I pulled up a strategywiki.org article
mhm.
on Castle of the Winds so that I could get a complete commands list. And it seems like if you right click and hold, you'll get a text tooltip.
Oh wow, I'm frankly shocked that I can right click for a text tooltip that just appears on screen. This is amazing. So we got a general store, we got a blacksmith, we got
Admittedly,
a
for again
sage.
the folks just listening to the podcast, he's right clicking on these things and a text box that looks like an old like version of Windows, just very basic font that says things like "You see Bjorn the blacksmith's shop."
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's very well done for the time, but it's nothing impressive now. And you
Yeah.
walk into the shops, and it's very much Final Fantasy one, like original Final Fantasy one vibes, because there's no
Oh yeah.
interior to the shop. You're just going straight to the transaction. Like this is 100% about commerce. You walk into a store, it gives you a like sort of an MS Paint style outline of your character, and in a way that's mimicked by like later games that came along maybe like 6 or 7 years later, like Baldur's Gate, where you've got your character and then there are different slots that you can drop stuff in for like belt, boot, rings, bracers, armor. It's actually like a really like full amount of stuff that you can actually put on the character. But it's just interesting that it there's no, I don't know, there's no artistry to sort of how they're doing building interiors or anything like that. It's just go in a building, bam, you are shopping, and that is all you're doing. And it really drives home the limitations of 3.1 as a gaming platform with this, because it jumps you into a whole other window that you have to exit from to exit the store. I think it pops up over there or like over top of your existing play window. But the game is sort of vaguely Norse in its mythology.
Yes. In fact, it's described in the Wikipedia page as being vaguely Norse in its mythology.
Oh, really?
Uh, something else for you to know now that you're navigating around on the map at speed: if you press Shift before pressing a direction, you will go all the way in that direction until you run into something,
Oh, snap. Okay.
which makes getting back to town a lot faster because there's nothing you can encounter between the dungeon and town. It's just the dungeon.
Another instance of this being sort of a transitional period between modern games and sort of your Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy style text adventures. Like you get all the way to the end of something and you can't move any further, and it says, "You look at the highway vanishing in the distance and feel no need to continue. you see a badly neglected highway and a trail leading into the mountains as you hit these spots, and it shows up in your display window down at the bottom. It's charming. It's really charming because you just don't see it much anymore. And I don't like not having a diagonal.
Oh, there is diagonal. Hold on. Let me pull those controls back.
Oh, wait, the numpad? I can use the numpad to move diagonally.
You can use either the numpad, or you can use the keyboard as KULN.
Absolutely not.
Northeast.
Absolutely not.
I feel like the keyboard must have been arranged not in a QWERTY fashion before. Oh, do we want to narrate this for the folks listening to the podcast?
Yeah, you get, sort of like for anybody who played Final Fantasy 1, like when you cross the bridge after you beat Garland, and it takes you out to sort of the splash screen, and then it does the sort of Star Wars intro and everything talking about the game. You get something very similar here in Castle of the Winds. You go up sort of to the northeast, and you get to an abandoned mine that's sort of your first dungeon. And Josh, if you'll put on a voice and read our narration.
I'm sorry to say that's not supposed to be an abandoned mine.
Is it?
That is not. It's supposed to be that you gaze once more at the charred ruins of the farm where you were raised. You buried the blackened skeletons of your godparents in the remains of the garden they loved, but you can't bury the anger which still seethes at the thought of how they died. Grimly, you vow that nothing will prevent you from avenging their deaths. The marauders pillaged the farm quite thoroughly. Nowhere in the ruins can you find the amulet left for you by your true father, whose dying words, whispered to your godfather, were supposedly of its importance to you, of how it could lead you to your fortune and great glory, but only if you proved your worth. Your godparents had promised it to you for your 18th birthday. Now you have neither godparents nor birthright, and your birthday has just passed. A search for clues in the rubble finds only a confused trail of footprints leading north towards the mountains. Many of the footprints seemed much too large to have come from the boots of bandits or soldiers. You look north, wondering, where might the amulet be by now? To whom must you prove yourself? And how?
Dun, dun, dun.
So
I've arrived at Helgen.
That's supposed to be the ruins of a charred farmhouse. And I think the little bits, the splashes of orange and red and yellow that are in it suggest to me that it is still actively on fire.
Yeah.
Which doesn't seem correct.
Limited color palette and bird's eye view. Very, very difficult to see what's going on.
A challenging visual experience,
We really need to stream this.
We may if there is enough people who are very excited for us to stream this, we may just do that, because
I'll take mild excitement.
It's a goofy little game, and it's fun, and I think we could have a good time. I will say, I don't think it makes, just playing the game, I don't think makes very good podcast content.
No, yeah, we'll do an audio let's play of it, like no one can know about this.
Oh my word. You found the shop, the Temple of Odin, where they will remove curses from you or give you spells like Rune of Return.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't think I have the money for that right now.
You probably should buy gear before you go into the dungeon. Not that you'll die, but
no, I'm gonna let hubris be my guide, because I've actually never been in a dungeon on this game before. I've only explored the overworld. Oh, and I can see how much I'm going to dislike this, just because you have no knowledge of the dungeon. You're just sort of poking through it as you go. This is what I've started playing a lot of Project Zomboid, and it really creeps me out when I'm playing it late at night and I'm just sort of skulking around town, especially if the in-game time is like morning and there's fog everywhere and I can't see whether there are any zombies near me or anything, and I've explored none of the map and I just don't know what's where. It puts me so much on edge. It's terrifying.
So what Brandon's talking about here is that in game, as you enter the dungeon, you can only see the giant rat is biting you. You can only see one square around you in any direction. Now, there are spells that will let you see more at a given time, but there's a sort of fog of war over the dungeon that keeps you from seeing anything you're doing. And you're dead. Fighting your second giant rat, you have died.
Ass Masterson experience 1 on easy. Killed by a giant rat after 0 days at 41 minutes after midnight.
This is one of my favorite things about this game is this goofy death screen where it shows a graveyard with R.I.P. Ass Masterson died 4/24/2024, killed by a giant rat.
This is wonderful.
It's so good. It brings me so much joy. So go ahead and get a new character started, and I will tell folks a little bit more about the game.
Okay.
So as you may have figured out by now, because you're clever listeners, Richard Sada has played a lot of Dungeons and Dragons in his life. At the very least, at this point in time. We found his personal website, admittedly, had to go into the Wayback Machine to get it up and running. But in his personal website, he has a whole section called Role-Playing Games, where he says, I admit it, I still have all my D&D books from junior high and still play regularly with 2 different groups of friends. For one of the games, I've kept a log of our adventures, which I've put online for people to enjoy and or laugh at. Please, Mom, no editor's comments. And it's very clear that he was the scribe for their group because, yeah, you just click and drag gear out of the shop and into your slots.
Okay.
That would be armor top left. Yes.
All right.
Brandon is buying equipment this time, as I recommended last time, so that hopefully he doesn't die again. I think you can right click to see the prices of things.
Yes.
Yeah. And your CP is up there at the top of the screen.
Okay.
So it's very clear from how this is written. It's amazing to me, again, that this is just a programming project he picked up so that he could get away from DOS Word. Like that blows my mind a little bit because it's such, I don't know, it's so well put together. It's so well thought out. It's clearly a labor of love. And it just, I don't know. I would have thought that he was professionally creating games at this time, and instead it's just like a goofy, fun side project he did. The second game, the second Castle of the Winds, was after he'd realized that he had something with the first Castle of the Winds. And so there's a little bit more structure to it, and it's a little bit more, I wouldn't say like carefully crafted, because this is exceptionally carefully crafted, but it is, there's more design elements to it, I think, than this one. For this one, it's literally just him and one of his RPG group buddies. Let me get the name real quick. Paul Caniff. Paul Caniff did almost all of the art for the game. And Richard says himself that everything is done very much in the 3.1 iconography style, so that it's easy for the system to use, but it also makes it so that you can customize the icons if you so choose.
So you can reskin the game if you want to. You just have to go into the tile set and replace things.
Well, he even has, when you're doing new character creation, he has a section where he goes, if you want to play your own character instead of one of the 2 I've created for you, all you have to do is upload your own image. Which, frankly, kind of incredible.
Just get a picture. Just get a picture of yourself and put it in there.
Yeah, get yourself a. You don't have to stop at the farmhouse if you don't want to. You're allowed to just wander into the dungeon and accomplish everything, having never looked at that block of text. Mm-hmm. Which I kind of appreciate. But you can see actually, oh, they're in your character sheet. There's the block for custom character icon, and then you just have to link the file name.
This is cool.
Which is
Go ahead.
for the time, pretty cool.
Yeah. Oh, I've got a verbs list. Oh, and it's got hotkeys for my commands, like examine, disarm, rest until healed, sleep until mana restored, open, close, up or downstairs. Oh, up or down. No, all right. My biggest pet peeve of early RPGs is the need for sort of an active stare command going up and down. I'm looking at you, Dragon Quest 1. It was so annoying, and they've taken that out in later games to help modernize it. But I'm just like, I'm not going to walk on the stairs unless I need to use the stairs. So don't make me have to hit a button for it, please.
In this case, there is very much there are occasions where you might flee to a set of stairs so you can pop spells off at people and fight them. Mm-hmm. And then you might flee up those stairs trying to desperately get away from what's attacking you. You can also use I believe it's the number keys to cast spells. So I think you can use like 1 to cast magic missile at things.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god. Kobold hit you so hard.
Yeah. I'm trying to cast a spell. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
Take that, Kobold.
Rest until healed.
So you can either use get to pick up everything that's on the floor as you're standing over items that you find, or you can press I to open your inventory, and that shows you what's on the floor and what's in your pack.
Oh, that's nice. Tell me a little bit more about the game, Josh.
So Richard Sada puts this together to get himself out of DOS Word, and then it takes off to the point where it ends up in an article in Computer Gaming World issue 102 as high quality shareware that you should get your hands on. And the thing that I appreciate the most about them putting this in here is that it demonstrates that you can get the game from Epic Mega Games by sending a payment of $25 for the game plus $2 shipping and handling to receive not just Castle of the Winds, but also the sequel. And I checked out, if you get out of the dungeon, they stop attacking you. And then you can rest. I checked out what the $27 you would have spent for both games and shipping and handling in 1993 would have meant for today money. And it's like $31.55 for 2 very solid, admittedly, very much built like they were built in an Excel spreadsheet macro, but still very solidly built little RPG roguelikes.
This is just very, like, charming is the word I keep coming back to. Because,
real quick,
yeah, go ahead.
Back into that corner and search.
All right.
Which is S, I think. Try it a couple times. Because, okay, there might actually not be anything there. Because
set me on a wild goose chase.
Oh no. So anytime you see a weird hallway like that at the end of a room, very frequently there's a secret door there. And we're talking, someone who plays a lot of Dungeons and Dragons in the late 80s, early 90s. The only way you find secret doors is by doing a lot of searching around where they would be. And so anytime you find a mysterious hallway, do searching there.
Yeah, I really do think we should stream this. I think this would be fantastic as a stream.
I think it could absolutely be a lot of fun. But we'll wait to hear if other people are similarly excited, or if they're like, look here, you dorks. if you want an excuse to play this game, do it on your own time.
Yeah, I don't play a lot of dungeon delving type games. Like I'm actually like not a huge Diablo fan because of that. Because I feel like the gameplay is just really limited for me because it plays much more like an OSR style game, and that's just not really my jam. But
Fair.
something like this, which this actually like ticks a lot of boxes for me, just in terms of kitschiness, inherent charm. It's got sort of the software nostalgia for me as well. So I would 100% like to play this some more. I don't know if I'll ever beat it. Like, how long have you ever beaten it?
I've beaten it a couple of times. It took me playing it fairly regularly and not speedrunner style a good couple of hours to beat it. And that admittedly includes one or two deaths early on because low level characters dying is very simple.
Oh yeah.
You can also double click on the staircase to go down them. So Richard Sada puts together the first game basically just as a programming opportunity so that he can get away from DOSWord. It takes off, and he goes, well, if it's popular and people are enjoying it, maybe I need to make another one. And so he releases Castle of the Winds 2, Lithransir's Bane, which I believe was still just him and Paul Caniff, because I can't find anything to indicate that anybody else was involved in any of these projects.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's already built the engine at that point, so it's probably not a huge deal for him to just make something new.
Well, I know they did a little bit of like art asset updating, and they did a little bit of like changes to gameplay, but overall it is very much the same kind of game, yes. So apparently, Richard works at Microsoft for 8 years, and as Microsoft is starting to turn into kind of a big deal, he and his wife are like, I think we're going to get out of here. So they leave Microsoft to go work at Flying Lab Software, which, this may not come as a surprise to you at this point in the story, is a gaming company. Flying Lab Software, the only thing I can find for them says that there's 3 games that they were involved in making. I've got a Wayback Machine website of theirs.
Yeah, because you told me you were having a ton of trouble trying to find anything about anything, really. And you had to go to the Wayback Machine to find active websites.
I think the issue is that a lot of these sites are just old sites. And so they haven't been maintained because no one needs to be maintaining them. So he and his wife go work at Flying Lab Software, which at the very least has a copyright 2011 that Wayback Machine has picked up. They create Pirates of the Burning Sea, which is such a cool name for a game, but I've never heard of, and then Rails Across America.
I guess that's a train game?
Yes, it appears to be a train game. Then from there, we were able to find his LinkedIn, which we won't link his LinkedIn, but it shows him moving to being the owner of HoloSpark in 2015, from 2015 to 2019, and then being the CEO at Nimble from 2019 to present. Nimble is a staffing agency that connects game developers with programmers for video games.
Which is pretty cool. I mentioned this when we were talking earlier, but that's pretty cool / I guess a good business model to be in with as many layoffs in the gaming industry as there have been. Because if you run a company that helps do placements for something like that, you're probably doing pretty well right about now.
I would suspect so, yes. So That's where he's at now. Brandon and I had a conversation before we started to record, and we said we should reach out to this guy, and at the very least, let him know that his beautiful, goofy project from decades ago still has fans. Those fans are still playing it, and it was inspiration for us to release this podcast episode.
I'm going to be honest with you, Josh. I'm actually having a blast playing this right now.
It's really well done. Like, he even has junk loot that's in the dungeon, which you're low enough level that maybe a few CP is worth loading up your inventory with.
Mm-hmm.
But for efficiency's sake, a lot of people are like, probably just I'm going to leave that there.
Yeah, I haven't even looked at anything like encumbrances or anything on this. I imagine I have to have one.
There, you do indeed. I'll look out for that zombie.
I see him.
One of the features in this game that I really appreciate that he worked in is that some rooms you have to like walk through the entirety of the room to explore it and see what's in it, one hex reveal at a time. Some rooms you walk into and the floor lights up blue and the entire room becomes visible all at once. And there's a spell that you can get called Light, which does that for you in all rooms. So that you can walk into a room and be like, I cast Light. Now I see everything. I don't have to go wandering through it slowly with what I presume is digital torchlight that's letting you reveal the map.
Yeah, I could have picked Light when I leveled up just a little bit ago, but I'm really paranoid, so I picked like Heal Minor Wounds instead.
I'm not gonna lie, I usually save Light to be my third spell.
Mm-hmm.
It's this beautifully simple game. It didn't take a whole lot to build out, I wouldn't imagine. Although, I don't know what programming was like back in the 3.1 days.
Oh, let's see here. A suit of rusty armor. I'll take it. Oh, it's too heavy for me. I do have an encumbrance. Damn. All right.
Well, it's not just your encumbrance, it's how much space is inside your small pack. As you progress, you'll need to get larger packs that you can use to carry stuff around. You see the weight limit on your small pack is 12,000. But if you look at the top of the inventory screen, your weight limit is like 44,000 because of your strength score.
Yeah, and like I said before, I really usually don't care for these kind of games just because I hate, like, okay, loot the dungeon, go back to town, get some other stuff sorted out, go to the next dungeon, loot the dungeon, go back to town, heal yourself up, turn the page, wash your hands, turn the page, wash your hands. But this is just kind of a blast.
Do you like the line of sight mechanics that he's programmed in?
Oh, yeah. I mean, and like I said, I've been playing a ton of Project Zomboid, so I've been having to deal with that too, like cones of vision that just screw me up constantly.
Yeah, it's if you can see the monster, odds are very high the monster can see you.
Yeah.
And as you're at this lower level, most of the monsters can't open doors, and some of the monsters can't open doors but can break doors.
Okay. Oh no, I'm being attacked by a snake.
Yeah, and snakes, as you might expect in an RPG like this, are venomous. All snakes are venomous. Oh, you can't rest with that.
Is that a wolf?
Coyote? Dingo?
He
Something.
He took my baby. He's dead now.
Wild dog.
Okay.
We were pretty close.
Oh, there's a
you're
rat
still
in
interrupted.
here too. There's too many things in here.
It's a very active room.
All right, now I'm gonna rest.
Fair warning. If there are monsters still in the dungeon when you rest, they may interrupt your sleep in the middle of the night to come fight you, as this giant red ant just did.
This giant red ant has a very high dexterity because it keeps avoiding my swing. So I'm
Additional fair warning. Once you run out of mana, you can keep casting spells, but you're going to take damage to do it. You'll be at a mana deficit, so that when you sleep to restore your mana, it'll it'll take that much longer to recover.
Yeah, once again, a first edition mechanic that I am very much not missing in modern games. But like in first edition, at least the one time I played in like an OSR first edition game, it was like you can keep casting past your spell slots, but since you're playing with sort of the fundamental forces of the universe decides it wants to take its pound of flesh, and it just starts your body just starts sort of like screwing up. Like I ended that adventure with like a tentacle, like two tentacles growing out of my body, and I think one of my arms turned to stone or something like that.
It's a little intense, but you know, it sounds like you earned it.
Oh yeah, I definitely tried to earn it. What is this? A broken pack. Can I get it? All right, I've got the broken pack now. All right, well, Josh, do you have anything more to add on Castle of the Winds? This was just sort of a nice little nostalgia trip.
I don't know that I've got a whole lot more to add. I think this isn't something that I had considered until we were talking about doing this as an episode, but I think I actually owe Castle of the Winds a little bit for my own interest in Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, I probably, had I actually played this back in the day, I probably would have gotten into D&D earlier than I did, because I didn't really start playing D&D until like late 95, something like that. But if I'd been playing this, that might have started a little bit sooner, because it took a while for some of my friends to talk me into playing.
I mean, I didn't have a group that I could play with until, gosh, 2009. And so my first system was 3.5. And I think this game is a big influence on why I was so interested in it in the first place.
Yeah, and I still wish, because getting back to the start of our conversation, I still wish I knew what the game was that I was thinking of, because it's not this one. I played some sort of dungeon delver that I think was a DOS game. I was like probably 7 or 8 years old, so I really don't have a lot of memory of it. But I wish I knew what that was. It's going to haunt me for probably like another 20 years, because I don't even remember enough about it to be able to go to like Tip of My Tongue or so, the subreddit or something, and be like, hey, this is what I remember. Could you tell me about it? And I'm just absolutely at a loss. Just anytime I see like an old PC game that has dungeon in the title, I immediately start wondering, is that it? Is that it? And you got my hopes up when we were talking about this, because I was like, oh, okay, well maybe that's what that is. And then I started playing. I was like, oh, this absolutely isn't what that was. It's fun though.
It's exceptionally well done, and it's something that my brothers and I and our father spent a lot of time playing back in the mid 90s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I will. I'll probably continue with this adventure of Mass Asterson, who is the replacement character that I created after her cousin Ass Masterson died from that giant rat.
Well, fortunately, both of them were in the prophecy for this amulet business nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
And both of them had godparents whose farm was set on fire. Maybe it was the same godparents. Who's to say?
That would be great if they just existed in the same game world. I would love that. Oh, shit, a skeleton. Oh, no.
Oh, and you fell into a pit.
This is no good at all. Oh, no, I discovered a pit.
Look at your HP. You fell into a pit.
But it was stairs, though. It said stairs. All right, we need to get this over with. Josh, tell them what they need to know.
I will tell them all the things they need to know. There's a variety of things. Some of those are... Where's the folder? Oh, Lord. Okay, here we go. Some of those are, first and foremost, today we're talking about Castle of the Winds and its sequel game, Lefrancier's Bane. And Y'all, it's a wonderful little game. If you're the sort of person who is not shy to put a DOS box on your system and run Windows 3.1, or to seek out a abandonware site where you could play this on your computer, I strongly encourage you to do so. It's super simple, but it's a lot of fun for what it is. And we'll post the link to Richard Sada's old website via Wayback Machine, where he includes a zip file for people who are still fans of the game if they want to download it and play it on their own time, which I think is frankly really cool, because he could be like, well, now that I'm not making money from it, I don't care if anyone plays it. But instead he's like, it's cool that y'all are fans. Here's a free copy for anyone that needs it.
No,
You should, great. If you do go and pick it up and start playing it, you should 100% come to the Goblins and Growlers Discord, bit.ly/Goblin Discord, and tell us about your adventures and experiences. You can find Brandon and I on social media at Way of Brandalore and at BlackCloakDM. You should telegraph, tell a friend about the Goblins and Growlers podcast, because word of mouth, being an exceptional Ludicrous album, is also the best way for us to get additional listeners and folks who are interested in this zany nonsense that we get into and might also want to come and hang out and chat about these things. Check out our link tree, linktr.ee/Goblins and Growlers. That's got links to everything, including our website, so that you can get to things like the online store, as well as more of our social media sites, as well as our sister podcast, Quid Pro Roll, where Brandon and I play a couple of absolute chaos gremlin characters. Brandon's an over-the-hill professional wrestler trying to bring a little glory back to his life, and I'm playing a half-elf rogue who is definitely not completely caught up on edgelord behavior. At the very least, he does have two parents who both love him very much.
He's a poser edgelord.
And I think that's everything I've got. If you are curious about this and you want to see a little bit of what the graphics look like and not just listen to us describe it to you like an audiobook, you can come to the YouTube and watch the video where, as I'm saying all of this, Brandon continues to fervently adventure throughout this dungeon. You can also let us know that you would like to see us stream this, and we can do an episode of, well, I guess it wouldn't be a podcast episode, so it'd just be us streaming of us playing this goofy old game and commentating and interacting with chat. Actually, you want to go back up there because there's a pouch on the floor that you totally missed that might have cool stuff in it.
I don't have enough room in my inventory for anything at this point.
Oh, man.
I'm going to have to go leave and sell stuff.
It
but you know what?
Cool stuff in it, though.
I think we should both play this at the same time and essentially do like a speedrun race on it.
Oh my god, that would be incredible. Yes, I agree. We can both share our screens.
All right. Well, I'm gonna just keep being mesmerized by this game. So let's wrap it up. Thanks everybody for listening. This was a bit of a different one, but we just got to talking about this and decided we wanted to play it. So that's why we're talking about it.
It was hugely influential to my childhood and is a big part of what's made me a GM today. So full credit to Richard Sada for taking his passion for the game and bringing me into it, even without me realizing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like I've said several times, it scratches an itch for me in terms of just a time in my life where I didn't really have to worry about anything, and I could just goof around and learn computers through, messing around with Windows 3.1 and DOS and stuff like that.
Hell so yeah.
It's a blast. I'm really enjoying this. Josh, thank you for telling me about this, because I'm really enjoying it.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, yeah, we'll talk to everybody later. Thanks for listening / watching us on this one. Don't forget to subscribe.
Bye.